Hello, hello, hello. We are back for another episode 7. Today we have Kat on the show. Kat, would you like to say hi to everyone?
Hey everyone.
All right. I know it's kind of awkward doing this stuff, but I figured I might as well. So, do you want to just start off with questions or do you just want to chat a little bit or, what do you
Um,
want to do?
let's just do questions.
All right. I have a first question for you. When we were texting before, you were saying, you were telling me stuff and we were joking around and I was kind of like, oh wow, I never knew like some of the stuff you were telling me. So I was very surprised.
Yeah.
Um, so my first question for you is, what was the feeling like when you first found out you had this thing going on? And would you like to tell the listeners, what this is?
Yeah, I have OCD, very similar to you, and I experience bipolar symptoms.
Okay.
Um, and those two combined ended me in an inpatient hospital, and that's thinking about that and like knowing that that's what happened had to happen kind of made me really anxious. I was very nervous to say, okay, I need help for this.
Oh, I totally understand that. I went to therapy as well. And I'm assuming you went to therapy and
Oh,
stuff like
yes, of
that. Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah. So when I went to therapy, they were just kind of like, "Oh, we'll ask you a few questions and whatnot," and I was like, "Okay." So then they're like, "Oh no, yeah, you got depression, OCD, all this fun stuff going on with us." So what was it like for you? When you found out you had this going on, like what was your initial feeling, deep inside?
Initially I was very in denial. I was very like, I don't have OCD. I just wash my hands a lot and sometimes they bleed. Like I was just like,
Yeah,
no,
yep.
that's normal. Um, and then eventually it started like getting in the way of my daily life. And I was like, okay, well, I guess now I kind of need to say, okay, yeah, this is real.
Yeah. I know I had a few things like that. See, I pull up my socks like I don't know, maybe 50 times and just rip holes through them, and it was just
Everyone does that.
oh yeah, everybody does it. But yeah, I'm doing all this, and I was like, I need to accept that something's going on,
Yeah.
which it leads me to my next question, Kat. What what was the feeling? I guess is like similar to the first one. What was your feeling like when it was time to face your fear? What was that moment where you were like, okay, now's the time where I have to get a jump on this, where I have to face it and be like, you know what, you're not going to control my life.
Yeah. I had always been very paranoid about talking about these things. And once I realized that the way to get better is to like accept I have this problem and talk about it, I was very nervous. It took me a really long time to finally open up to a therapist. And then once I got the ball rolling, it was all a matter of, okay, I'm anxious about this, but I also want to get better from this.
You want to
So,
learn, you want to start taking
yes,
steps to get better. Gotcha.
exactly. So it was obviously nerve-wracking facing that, but
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so my next question for you would be if, how did you come to figure out that you were more than just normal, but you were gifted? Because the way I see it, this isn't a crutch. This isn't a
mhm,
disability, a mental disability. This isn't a mental block. This is a gift because you have insight which nobody else has. Like some of the stuff you have,
mhm,
I don't know. Like I can't imagine. So you have this insight and this gift to show other people and tell them what it's like and tell them they're not alone, even if they never come out to you and tell you. You just have this amazing gift of being able to speak to people, and that's wonderful. So how did you come to find out that you were more than just normal? You were gifted.
well, obviously there are things that have shown through in my life that even doctors have pointed out, like, oh, that's a little wonky. Like I tick, and I have since I was very little.
Yeah.
And that was like the first kind of like, okay, she has anxiety.
Hmm.
And when I was little, I would be very concerned about death.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so eventually it was more of a, my parents were a little afraid of me.
They're
Um, so I've kind of just grown up with this idea that, okay, my mental health isn't at its peak, but I'm working towards making it okay, if that makes sense. Like I've just kind of grown up into this idea.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And when you say like your parents were afraid of you, were they more like, I know they weren't actually like afraid of you, but were they were they more concerned of the fact that you had they knew there's something else going on, and they were more afraid of the fact of what could happen to you because, you're their daughter and they're scared for you.
Yeah, definitely. And for the longest time, they were like bringing me to therapy, making sure I was okay. And then sadly, you were there for that, but my father passed away,
Hmm.
and after that, my mom decided, okay, more therapy.
Yeah, and I'm very sorry for your loss. That's
Ah.
I can't I wouldn't say psh to that. I mean, that's really something, and I'm really sorry. I think I met him once, and he was really cool, but I am
Yeah,
very
you were never
sorry.
on that side of my family, I guess.
Yeah, I was always on your mom's side and everything. But my next question for you: when did you realize that you're not alone in this fight? When did you come to find out that I may feel alone. I may have this sense of emptiness inside me, but it's filling me up, with other people telling me, "Hey, you got this." And I mean, just by coming on this show and just talking about this is like a huge step. And I mean, I know you come really far from where you've been, but this I think might help you even more just by telling other
You.
people your story, because I've had people reach out to me and they're like, "Oh, when's this person going to do it? When's this person going to do it?" And I'm like, I never thought about asking them. And I haven't I haven't quite like grasped why they said that until I started talking with you tonight, because people are so interested in the fact that everyone has a gift and
Hmm.
they all want to hear that gift. And I just think it's so awesome how I get this ability to talk to you guys about your gifts and how just amazing you guys are. So, when did you realize that you're not alone in this fight?
I think a lot of it started with you, actually. We never really talk much, and I feel like that's mostly because I didn't want to ask you about these things if I couldn't respond about these things.
I get that.
Um, but I remember one time both of our families went out together, and my mom, I don't know what possessed her, but she said, "Oh yeah, Kat has OCD."
I remember that. Yep.
Um, it was just like a you you were like, "Oh yeah, the intrusive thoughts are really bad," and we talked for a quick second about it, and just like knowing that like in that moment I wasn't the only one thinking a
Hmm.
really bad thing that I didn't want to be thinking.
Yeah.
Um and I feel like before I had known about how we both struggle with this similar thing,
Yeah.
I was very closed off and I wouldn't tell anyone about anything. So it really mostly started with you.
Wow. I mean, I feel honored. That's crazy. I mean, you were one of the first for me too. I wouldn't say the very first, but
Mhm.
I do thank you for being one of the first. I mean, you were always close when we were growing up. You're still close
Yeah.
now. And it was just crazy, like all these things just happen. And you're like, wow, I never know you went through this.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm just in disbelief. It's just insane. Um, so my next, I have a bunch of questions still, but who were and still are your biggest supporters in your life right now?
Definitely a lot of my friends.
Hmm.
I consider like my close friends very supportive of me. Either they actively help like when I'm in a rut basically, or
Hmm.
even just like knowing that there's someone on the other side of a phone or on the other side of the world even who just is present, who is also living at the same time. It's
Yeah,
not necessarily, oh, these people are supporting me right now actively, but the idea of them is enough support for me to want to get better.
gotcha. That's really cool. I like that. I like how you put that. That's really nice. Um, I know my mom has been bugging me a lot to start asking this when I start shooting episodes. So Kat, are you, if you know, you have looked over the questions, but I want to make sure you're comfortable
I'm
answering this. Are
yes.
you using any sort of like medication just to help with the control of your situation that you're going through, or just like little things, a lot of things, just stuff like that?
Yeah, I've been on meds for physical conditions since I was little, so going on meds for mental conditions were no second thought. Like you
Hmm.
have diabetes, you're gonna take medication for your diabetes. You have
Yeah.
bipolar, you're gonna take medication for your bipolar. So yes, I am on quite a few drugs, some antipsychotics, some antidepressants,
Okay.
and they do help a lot. In fact, I know this isn't really what we're talking about, but there's things like hallucinations that I used to experience that
Yeah.
on the meds are much less prominent or at all.
Yeah.
So definitely meds have helped me to ease my anxiety. It
Hmm.
it doesn't take it all away, obviously. No
Yeah.
meds take it all away, but they definitely help ease, like take the edge off of it.
And I always wanted to let people know, like, my friends, oh, excuse me, come to me and they're always asking, like, oh, are you on any medications? What's it like being on all these drugs? And they're always joking about drugs and stuff. And I always wanted to say, and I never really gave myself the opportunity to, I never had the guts to say it, but it's not a crutch. Medications aren't a crutch, they're an aid.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can say that's the same thing, but to me, an aid is different than a crutch, whereas in a crutch, you rely on it heavily. An aid is something where, yes, it helps you, but at the same time, it's really dependent on how you think of this going on.
Hmm.
If you think that, oh, the medication is going to take it all away, you're going to go down a really, really long and hard road, because I've been down that road for a few years, and I'm like, oh, I just keep upping my medication, I'll be fine. And it turns out I'm not fine, I'm worse than I started. But
Definitely.
I just want people to realize that medication is an aid, it's not a crutch. It can definitely be a crutch at points. Not to say that it shouldn't be, but it shouldn't be the whole time. The
Yeah,
whole time it is a crutch, then there's something else going on, and you need to figure it out what it is, and get help for it.
I
So
definitely like the way you used aid and crutch because an aid is just present. An aid isn't always helping you.
an aid isn't a
Um,
solution. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So I really did like that.
Yeah. And just to wrap this whole thing up, I don't want to keep you forever, because I know you got stuff going on, and I don't want keep you here forever. But if you could give one piece of advice, just one sentence, one statement, one anything, for the people listening, however many people decide to listen, what would it be?
I definitely want to say that recovery isn't a straight line, which is something you hear a lot. Obviously, a lot of people say, hey, recovery isn't a straight line. You're going to fall back down again. You're going to get back up again. But along with your own personal ups and downs, recovery doesn't look the same to everyone.
Hmm.
Recovery could be someone laughing at old pictures, or recovery could be someone crying and eating ice cream and watching a movie. Your
Hmm.
recovery looks the way it should for you,
Hmm.
and there is no one way to recover from any sort of mental health issue.
I can totally agree, because I used to think, watching movies and stuff, recovery is, oh, you got to have fun and you got to do all this thing. But recovery can be just, letting it all out, just crying it all out, or it can
Yeah,
be laughing it
exactly.
off. It's so many different things. And I think people need to realize that recovery is definitely not, it's not easy, but it's probably the best thing that
Yeah,
you can try and get yourself going forward. So, all in all, thank you for coming on and,
of
talking
course.
about things. I know it wasn't super easy, or maybe it was. I have no clue. But then again, thank
I'm
you
just
so much.
shaking a little.
Just a little, just a little. But thank you again for coming on. It means the world. And
Thank you for having me.
that's it, everybody, for episode 7. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys on the next episode.